Welcome to Tech Disruptions, deep dives into the technologies reshaping industries, from AI to quantum to biotech. Let's get into it.
A 24-hour ban from the White House on an AI model? That's a headline that grabs attention, but it also raises more questions than it answers. What could possibly warrant that kind of rapid, high-level intervention?
It really does. The phrasing itself, panic over Anthropic and initially restricted Anthropic's advanced AI models, suggests an emergency scenario, not a drawn-out regulatory process, but a sudden, almost reflexive government response to something perceived as an immediate threat from a specific company's technology.
So we're not talking about a congressional hearing on AI ethics here. We're talking about something akin to, say, a national security directive or an executive order that came down with a hammer.
Exactly. A 24-hour restriction implies a very short leash, a temporary pause button, while something more permanent, or at least better understood, could be considered. It points to either an unprecedented capability that surprised regulators or a perceived oversight that needed to be rectified instantly.
The very brevity of it is striking. It's not a ban in the traditional sense, like an outright prohibition. It's more like a temporary suspension, a timeout. What kind of situation would necessitate such a specific, time-limited intervention on a cutting-edge AI model from a company like Anthropic?
The unusual nature of a 24-hour restriction suggests that the immediate threat was either quickly mitigated or the initial assessment of its danger was revised almost as rapidly as it was made. It's like a circuit breaker trip. Something overloaded the system, it shut down, and then they reset it after a quick diagnostic.
It's worth exploring the panic aspect. Anthropic is a major player, often cited for its safety-conscious approach to AI development. They've built their reputation, in part, on aligning AI with human values, on constitutional AI. For the White House to reportedly panic over their advanced models implies something beyond standard AI risks.
It fundamentally challenges the public perception that safety-conscious developers are inherently immune from creating systems with unforeseen and potentially catastrophic emergent properties. If a company known for its safety ethos can still produce something that causes alarm at the highest levels of government, it raises questions about the predictability of advanced AI itself. What does safety even mean in that context?
It also implies that the government, despite all the ongoing dialogues and task forces, might still be caught off guard by the actual capabilities being developed in labs. The policy frameworks are still playing catch-up.
Absolutely. It highlights a critical disconnect, the speed of technological development versus the glacial pace of governance. Policymakers are often working with frameworks designed for technologies decades old, trying to apply them to systems that can scale and evolve at unprecedented rates. A 24-hour restriction feels less like a policy decision and more like an emergency brake pull because no established protocol existed for the perceived threat.
So, if one were to hypothesize, what kind of advanced AI models from Anthropic could trigger this kind of swift, high-level restriction? This is not about models that occasionally hallucinate or generate biased text, is it? This sounds far more serious.
Precisely. The level of intervention suggests a concern transcending the everyday issues of AI. One category of concern could be models exhibiting capabilities that directly touch national security. Think about something that could generate highly convincing, untraceable disinformation campaigns at an unprecedented scale and speed, potentially influencing elections or destabilizing critical infrastructure narratives.
Like a geopolitical weapon in a box, ready to deploy.
Or consider capabilities that could interact with or even orchestrate complex cyber attacks. A model that could identify vulnerabilities, craft sophisticated phishing campaigns, or even automate parts of a cyber warfare operation, making it virtually undetectable to human analysts. That moves beyond a mere software tool into something that could be a strategic asset or liability.
That's a significant jump from content generation. This involves active, autonomous, and potentially destructive capabilities.
Another area of extreme concern involves biological or chemical threats. If an advanced AI model, even inadvertently, demonstrated the ability to rapidly design novel pathogens, optimize existing ones, or synthesize dangerous chemicals based on publicly available information, that would instantly trigger alarm bells. The dual-use nature of many scientific discoveries, amplified by AI, is a constant worry.
So an AI that could, in essence, accelerate bioweapon development or make it accessible to a wider range of actors, that would absolutely warrant a panic response. It's not just about what the AI does, but what it enables.
Exactly. The fear isn't necessarily that the AI itself is malicious, but that its advanced capabilities could be misused by bad actors, or even produce unintended dangerous outputs that bypass human oversight. It's about the potential for uncontained harm, scaling at machine speed.
This implies a very narrow window where this capability might have been discovered, assessed, and then temporarily contained. It highlights the incredibly rapid iteration cycles in AI development.
It does. Developers are pushing the boundaries constantly, and even with internal safety checks, there's always the risk of emergent behavior that wasn't predicted. It's like building a rocket engine. You can test components, but the full system test can reveal entirely new phenomena. And when the rocket engine is an advanced AI, the stakes are immensely higher.
What does a 24-hour restriction indicate about the government's capacity to deal with these kinds of threats? Is it a sign of decisive action or a desperate scramble?
It's likely a bit of both. On one hand, it shows a willingness and ability to act swiftly at the highest levels when a clear and present danger is perceived. That's a positive in terms of executive readiness. On the other hand, the short duration and the implied lack of a pre-existing nuanced framework for such an event suggests that it was an ad hoc reactive measure. They didn't have a playbook for advanced AI model exhibiting potentially catastrophic capabilities.
So it's not a mature regulatory body stepping in, but potentially a national security team making a snap judgment call.
Likely so. It highlights the urgent need for robust regulatory frameworks and technical expertise within government that can keep pace with AI development. This incident, even if purely hypothetical based on the title, serves as a stark reminder that the current mechanisms are perhaps too slow, too broad, or simply not designed for the specific challenges posed by advanced AI.
And what about the implications for transparency? If the White House implements a 24-hour restriction on an AI model, how much of that becomes public? The title itself suggests some details eventually emerged, but the initial phase must have been tightly controlled.
That's a crucial point. For something of this nature, especially if national security or critical infrastructure was truly at stake, the default would likely be extreme discretion. Public disclosure could cause panic, tip off adversaries, or reveal sensitive information about intelligence capabilities. However, a complete lack of transparency erodes public trust and makes it harder to develop effective policy. It's a tightrope walk.
A kind of black box governance for black box AI.
Essentially. And that's problematic in a democracy. How do you hold powerful actors, both corporate and governmental, accountable for decisions about technology that could reshape society when the details are shrouded in secrecy? The implicit threat of such a ban also acts as a powerful lever for government over developers.
So this brief ban could also be interpreted as a message, a warning shot across the bow of the entire AI industry, that the government is watching and will intervene if it deems it necessary, even if its methods are still developing.
It's absolutely a signal. It tells developers that while innovation is encouraged, there's a hard line, and crossing it will result in direct, high-level government intervention. It pushes companies to internalize even stricter safety protocols, not just for ethical reasons, but for operational continuity and avoiding potentially reputation-damaging government actions.
It also speaks to the broader geopolitical race for AI dominance. If one nation's government is restricting its own company's advanced models, what does that say about the perceived capabilities and risks emerging from other nations, where perhaps such restrictions are non-existent or less transparent?
That's the other side of the coin. If the U.S. is taking such a drastic, if temporary, measure, it suggests an acute awareness of the strategic implications of these technologies. It implies a high-stakes environment where AI capabilities are viewed as critical national assets, but also as potential weapons. This kind of action might be seen as safeguarding against strategic vulnerabilities, even if it means temporarily hindering domestic development.
So this 24-hour ban wasn't just about Anthropic. It was a flashpoint for a much larger, ongoing debate about AI governance, national security, and the very rapid, sometimes unpredictable evolution of artificial intelligence.
It condenses so many of those anxieties into one dramatic, albeit brief, event. It's a microcosm of the challenges facing policymakers as they grapple with technologies that are simultaneously revolutionary and potentially destabilizing.
So, looking back at this hypothetical 24-hour restriction, what are the core takeaways for anyone trying to understand the intersection of AI development and government oversight?
First, the speed of AI advancement means emergency measures, even temporary ones, are becoming a necessity because regulatory frameworks can't keep up. Second, even safety-first AI developers can create models with unforeseen, high-stakes capabilities that trigger top-level government concern.
And that implies the nature of the threat isn't just about bias or ethical dilemmas, but potentially existential risks like national security or biological hazards.
Exactly. Third, transparency around these kinds of interventions remains a huge challenge, balancing public right to know with national security concerns. Finally, these interventions, however brief, serve as powerful signals to the entire AI industry about the boundaries of acceptable innovation and the government's willingness to enforce them.
It definitely leaves listeners with a lot to consider. If a 24-hour ban can happen, what does that mean for the next generation of AI models that are already in development? And how can regulatory structures be built that are agile enough to respond without stifling innovation completely?
That's all for this episode of Tech Disruptions. Join us next time as we keep exploring the technologies reshaping our world. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Stay curious out there.